Ingles is proud to present the Big South Football Preview Show. Ingles, low prices, love the savings.
Here on the Gridiron, we see so many things happen, from the devastating heartbreaks to also the last-second miracles. Is that what you remember the most, Cole?
I remember a lot about my playing career, and what stands out to me the most is the locker room. Just being around the guys, the celebrations, the dancing, and the music. That camaraderie, that'll last me a lifetime, and those are the memories I'll never forget.
And now for the 20th season, the Big South is looking to crown their conference champion this 2021 season. So it's only fitting that we're in a locker room as we welcome you into the Big South Football Preview Show. I'm Richmond Weaver, joined by Aaron Summers and Cole Neely. And it is crazy just being back in a locker room. And Cole, you played at Furman. You've been in a locker room. You've experienced that firsthand, just what it means to be in a locker room.
Man, I'll tell you what, the smell doesn't change at all, I'll tell you that. But I definitely miss it. I miss being around the guys. It's a little bit different when you're not playing football anymore. You don't have that same camaraderie when you go home, you get out the shower, you talk to guys about, hey, what you want to do for dinner. That's an experience that, will last a lifetime. So I'm very grateful to kind of be back in the locker room for about, a few months removed now. So it's definitely a great feeling.
Yeah, it's a great experience. And from your perspective, Aaron, you in sports journalism, sports broadcaster, you've experienced the locker room from a different side, and it's just been crazy with the pandemic that we had, that it was a little bit different not having access to the locker room.
This is the first time I've been able to be back in a locker room in a year and a half. And as a media member, the access for the past year was so different. Not being able to talk to the players one-on-one or go to the field and kind of see things firsthand. So this year I'm really excited, first, to be back here and be able to be around the players again.
I remember hearing in the distance a guy go, if the country was more like a football locker room, we'd be a lot better off.
That is where the heart and soul of your team is. It's them playing for one another, sacrificing for one another, and doing things that you would normally do for yourself because you care so much about your brother.
We always go in the locker room where we get to celebrate as a family. And that's really what that's about.
So when we talk about the locker room, we call it one team, one heartbeat. That's our foundational piece of who we are. And the locker room, that's where it starts, because that's home.
I think it's a big thing, just being around the players. And obviously there's a lot of excitement, and especially this year in the Big South. This is their 20th year of celebrating football in the Big South. And not only celebrating 20 years of football, but this is also the highest number of members they've had in a season, with 9 members right now. And now we know Kennesaw State and also North Alabama as associate members are going to be leaving for the Atlantic Sun. But this has been a process that Commissioner Kyle Calander has been through for the past 20 years, helping build this conference into the strength that it is now. And he knows how important it's been through this journey.
All along, we've been saying, we got to get to the fall of 21. We got to get there. We got to have as normal a season as we can, and so we're thrilled and excited to be able to have this season, to have it as normal as we can. And I'm, very positive about having a full season, to not have the disruptions that we had before. Our institutions are taking it very seriously. They're really pushing forward, and I'm really proud of what they've done to get to this point and to look forward to 2021 season. And I think it's going to be very memorable.
And of course, the big addition is North Carolina A&T. How exciting is that for them to now be a member of the Big South?
North Carolina A&T and Robert Morris, they're joining for their first full conference slate. So it'd be exciting to have 2 more teams.
Hey, I tell you what, I know Kennesaw State and all those teams are looking forward for a challenge. So, hey, NC A&T, they're going to bring it.
They definitely are. And while the Big South might be relatively young, in terms of number of seasons that they played football, they're not short in list of accomplishments. They've had 88 players over the past 20 years have NFL opportunities and 251 All-Americans. And Commissioner Kyle Calander, he's definitely excited about this season, the 20th season, even with all of the changes that have occurred.
The Big South, they allowed teams to play in the fall, 4 non-conference games, or play in the spring, and then they would make a 4-game conference schedule. They didn't get all those games in, but there were 5 teams that participated in the spring. It was Robert Morris, Gardner-Webb, Charleston Southern, Kennesaw State, and Monmouth. And Robert Morris got that first taste of Big South play, didn't get a win, however, definitely stuff to build on for them. And then Kennesaw State and Monmouth, they competed for that championship game. They're still able to play for a conference title, and Monmouth came out on top, of course, as they are the preseason pick again for this season. Lots of players getting some good experience this spring, and a lot of the freshmen being able to come into this season more mature, understanding the speed of the game and the game plan there in spring ball.
I think the biggest things how will these teams respond? The teams that played in the fall versus the teams that played in the spring?
Well, when you look at it, Campbell and North Alabama, they played in the fall, and I think that's great. That's a great opportunity. You get to learn a little bit about what your team, what they're going to be like, certain guys that you can rely on, and when a real season kind of comes back, and it's good experience. It's kind of like having a long spring practice, basically, is how I see it. So it's very good. Strategy-wise, you get to see what other teams have in the spring. So if you played in the fall, I feel like you kind of won that. You won that on the strategic side of things. You play in the spring, a little bit of a shorter adjustment period, but you at least know what you have going into the fall season. Those teams have a lot to look forward to, basically.
And how will the players, the guys that played in the spring, will it be something that they have to worry about having such compact playing time within a 1-year period?
Talking to the players at Big South Media Day, they said that they were tired coming out of spring this year because you played at a different level when you're playing in a game than you do in practice. And usually the spring season for a player is shorter. It's not as intense as having to play games. So they said they did take a couple of weeks off to make sure that they rested before they jumped into summer training.
As with any new season begins, there's this new re-energized hope and optimism, especially from the teams that maybe didn't get finished the way they wanted to. But when you look at the preseason coaches poll and media poll, it's the usual suspects. I mean, we've got Monmouth with almost a unanimous favorite to win the Big South again, 16 out of 18 first place votes.
We mentioned that Kennesaw State and Monmouth played for the title in the spring. They're the 1-2 in the preseason poll, and then you have NC-A&T sliding in at third. And Coach Washington was not pleased with being third. He was very disappointed. He said it's been a long time since they've been in the third spot, and he definitely is planning on coming in and shaking some things up.
And you can't take away from other teams that we have listed there.
No, you can, and there's going to be some teams that could be some dark horses, some guys that could potentially shock everybody. I mean, I think Charleston Southern may shock some people and may end up in that third spot, but I think there's going to be some rearrangement in that preseason poll, at least from my side of things, because I think NC-A&T is probably the second best team in the conference right now, and I think Kennesaw State is at third.
And North Alabama isn't eligible for a Big South Conference championship as an associate member, but the league did vote and decided to allow their conference games to count towards the standings, which will make the conference even more competitive. But we know it's the usual suspect. All eyes are going to be on Monmouth this year. And Coach Kevin Callahan, entering his 29th season as head coach, he knows the importance of not just resting on what you've done in the past.
Our players understand it's all about what you do today. And we have a belief in our program that it's not about what we did last week, or it's not about what we need to do next week. It's about what we're doing this week. And we need to go out and take care of business on the field 1 week at a time. And to me, this is going to be the most competitive that this conference has ever been. From top to bottom, there's some very great teams, there's some very talented individuals, and some outstanding coaches. So whoever does come out on top, whoever finishes atop the league in first place, is going to have to, number one, do the job each and every week, but it's going to truly be a test of who really is the number one team.
I know one thing, Coach Callahan's going to be really excited. All his stars are coming back except for one, so he's definitely going to have some good momentum going into the season with a lot of older guys, a lot of experience. On offense, they've put together over 440 yards of total offense, so you know they're going to be explosive. Two guys to keep an eye on this upcoming season. Running back Juwan Fari, he's going to be a guy that is going to help make life easier for Tony Muskett. Tony Muskett was a freshman earlier this spring season, and now he's going into a sophomore season, and life's going to be a lot easier having a guy like that in the backfield. So expect some great things from this offense that's going to make them a national championship contender this season.
And this is also a team that's returning 10 starters on defense, and it's easy to see why this is the favorite, with 15 players on the first team all-conference preseason selection, led by running back Juwan Fari, who was voted the Offensive Player of the Year, and defensive back Anthony Budd, who was voted Defensive Player of the Year. Then at the Big South Football Media Day, Erin, you actually got to spend some time and talk with some of these all-conference selections.
It was really fun being around players, coaches, media, everybody being able to hang out again and kind of have an event like that. And the words that I kept hearing were appreciation, just being so thankful that they had a full season to look forward to and a plan this season, unlike last year being so up and down, and then excitement. Everybody just so excited for the start of the season. One of those new teams that was in attendance at the Big South Media Day, NCA&T, hoping to contend for the top spot in the Big South, come in with a championship pedigree. They've won 4 out of the last 5 MEAC titles, 4 HBCU national titles. They definitely know how to win. And head coach Sam Washington, heading into his 4th season, said that expectations for them are exactly the same. They know that even though they haven't played since 2019, they are ready to put in the work and do what it takes to come in the Big South and win. And a lot of it is going to be with the help of their running back, Jermaine Martin. He was named a preseason All-American by Athlon Sports. And in 2019, he led the nation in yards per carry and rushing touchdowns. So he's definitely a threat on the ground. And then their defensive back, Najee Reams, he's the quarterback of their defense. He's the leader of that side of the ball. Expect some really big things from the Aggies.
Teams in the Big South, they better be ready for Jermaine Martin, because he is one of those explosive type of guys. And Coach Washington knows how valuable he is to their program.
Jermaine is one of those guys, he's a leader. I mean, just by nature. And the energy that he brings, to practice and to those workout sessions is priceless. And then the motivation that he gives others and the players around him is priceless. And work ethic is something that we hang our hat on. We think effort is very important. And how hard you could get after it is very important. And he's one of those players that lead us in that direction.
And the team that we mentioned that can't compete for a Big South Conference championship, North Alabama, they did play 4 games in the fall. And head coach Chris Willis, he knows how important it was for his teams to actually play some games against some FBS opponents just to have a sense of normalcy.
We didn't know if the spring was really even going to happen at that point in time, but it was floating around. And so the guys basically came to me, and it was more of just the fact of some normalcy after what was all going on. Coach, let's try to play some football. So once we had the 4 games put together on schedule, and that also got put together by the players. They come to me about, Coach, let's play some FBS opponents. And if we're going to do this, let's do it. And let's kind of put a gauge on ourselves. And that's why we had BYU, Liberty, Southern Miss. And then Jacksonville State was our only FCS opponent. So it was obviously a challenging schedule, but we set it up that way. And then you have to look at the financial side of things. Everybody's different. Schools are different. And we felt like by playing those games, we did a lot of good for the athletic department and the university.
Now here in the fall, the Lions have 10 returning starters on offense, led by wide receiver Cortez Hall. And this is a guy with over 1,200 yards receiving in his career, and that he can extend the field with his big play-making ability, but you can't sleep just on him, because you think you might shut him down. Then you have to worry about, on the other side, redshirt junior wide receiver Dexter Boykin, who has over 1,300 yards receiving in his career and has caught a pass in all 25 games that he's played for the Lions. In North Alabama, the teams that they did play in the fall were 3 FBS programs, including BYU, which was number 8 in the country at the time. Now, another team, though, that has some unknowns is Hampton, considering they haven't played football since the fall of 2019 because they suspended all sports activities back in July of 2020.
Well, I know something Coach Prunty is excited about. He doesn't have a young team anymore. These guys have experience, they're mature, so he has a lot to look forward to. On offense, they have all-conference wide receiver Jadakiss Bonds coming back. He had almost 1,000 yards receiving the last time he was playing football in 2019. On defense, they weren't as great there. They did average about 31 points a game allowed. So I know that's going to be an area they're going to want to improve on if they want to be a contender for the Big South Championship this fall.
Jadakiss Bonds set a school record 15 touchdowns in 2019, including a season best 3 against Charleston Southern.
Bonds, Prunty, the entire team, they're fired up to see somebody else on the other side of the football field this fall.
The Big South is first class. The way they do things, you know, being able to, you know, Cal, when I first got into the league, he brings you in his office, he sit down with you personally. He gets to know you as a human being. And that's reflection of the Big South. We're very excited. And, you know, we miss football. You never know how much you miss something. I've been coaching for 30 years, and to have it taken away, it was tough. It was tough, but I don't play anymore. But it was more tough on the players. I'm so excited about them having the opportunity to get a chance to compete again. The sky's the limit for the Big South. It's nowhere but up.
With the schedule changing last year, a lot of unknowns, Campbell was a team that opted to play in the fall, kind of keep the similar schedule as playing in the fall, take spring off, and they played 4 FBS opponents and really learned a lot from those games about the caliber of play, the speed, what you have to bring at the next level. And a lot of the players said that that's helped them get ready for this season, know what it's going to take, because head coach Mike Minter said it is championship or bust for them, and that is the main focus for this Camel squad. And they're going to be led by their quarterback, Haj Malik Williams. He just makes everybody better on the field. In the fall, he led the team in rushing yards, passing yards, touchdowns, overall offense. He's an absolute stud, nearly 3,000 yards so far, and he's just played a season and a half at Campbell. And then on the other side, defensive back Darian Slade, who could have been drafted, but opted to come back because he wants to be a part of that championship team, really believes that the Camels have that ability this season.
When you talk about building a football team, you talk about leadership. And as a coach, you got to find players that's an extension of you. That's why you got to pick guys like a Haj Malik Williams. And that's what he is. He's an extension of me as a head coach. He feels the way I feel about the game. He sees what I see when I'm looking at the game. He understands teamwork like I see teamwork. And that's the first thing that you look for. So when you talk about quarterback, you want a guy that can lead his team. A lot of people like to compete, but a lot of people don't love to win. And that's what he brings to the table. And that's what he brings to Campbell University.
And this is a team that's returning 10 of 11 starters on both offense and defense. And also Coach Minter is returning 100% of both rushing and passing yards. Obviously, he's going to be leaning on quarterback Haj Malik Williams. But when you talk about quarterback in the Big South, you can't mention quarterback without saying the name Jack Chambers at Charleston Southern.
Yeah, Jack Chambers is the leader for the Buccaneers this season. Coach Archie Denson is very impressed by the way he's been able to lead the guys, buy into the culture that he's implemented in his 3rd season with the Buccaneers. So he's definitely going to be a guy that all eyes are going to be on.
Our first standard is GHEA, and that's GHEA, and it means to give a God honoring effort with a God honoring attitude. We are process driven, not result driven, and by the way we do that is we can control the process, which ultimately would control the outcome. And so for us, it's to go out and give a God honoring effort with a God honoring attitude and trust him with the results. If we can get our guys to do that, everything else takes care of itself. So it doesn't change based upon the phases that we're in. It doesn't change based upon our opponent. It is all about us living out our championship habits, our standards, and our culture so that we get that consistent result at the end of the day.
When you talk about Jack Chambers offensively, he was only 2 yards short from having a 1,000-yard passing season. And he's a guy who can have 300 to 350 yards passing a game. I think they're just that talented on offense. Defensively, they are good at generating pressure. Their last game of the season against Gardner-Webb, they created 3 turnovers. And they really do have what it takes to be a great defense. only 6 sacks this past spring season, but that's going to be a number that's going to increase significantly when they play a full 11-game schedule. So definitely be on the lookout for this team. Be on the lookout for the offense and the defense. I think that it could be a team that shocks a lot of people in the Big South and may end up in that top 3 spot by the time the dust clears this season.
And all eyes will be on quarterback Jack Chambers, leading Coach Denson's air raid with an attitude, and a team that might not necessarily be an air raid type of team, but they are going to pound the ground with their rushing attack, and that's at Kennesaw State, led by head coach Brian Bohannon. Now, they're leaving the Big South, heading towards the Atlantic Sun, but Coach Bohannon knows how important it's been that the Big South has been a home for the Owls.
7 years ago, I came to a Big South meeting with no players, no team, no program. Just been hired as a head coach. When I look at where we were then and where this league is now, it's impressive because this year will be the toughest the Big South Conference has been since I've been here. It's just, you look across the board, the additional teams that are brought in, teams have gotten better that are in the league, and it's really going to be challenging week in, week out. We always say that, but I think this is going to be the best. But we've won a couple conference titles in our short time and had a chance to advance the playoffs multiple times and hopefully done everything in the right way.
Brian Bohannon was named first ever head coach for the Owls in 2013 and has already notched 52 wins in the short career. They didn't start playing until 2015. They've won 2 Big South Conference championships. He's been named Big South Coach of the Year twice. They have a spread option, which is very hard to defend, and averaged almost 30 points per game this past spring. They led the Big South in total defense and ranked 14th nationally, but the question's going to be who will step up to replace All-American linebacker Bryson Armstrong. Will that be Cole Loudon at defensive back? But we know on the offensive side, they're led by Isaac Foster, one of the best all-around players in the Big South, averaged 110 yards per game, all-purpose yards. So you can see why Kennesaw State was picked one of the preseason favorites in the Big South. Now, obviously, it's hard predicting some of these teams and where they're going to finish, but just because we really haven't had a full season to compare these teams. But if there's a team that's going to be motivated being picked number 8 in the conference preseason, that's Robert Morris head coach Bernard Clark Jr.
Bernard Clark said that he's turned the program around before. In 2019, they started the season 0-3, ended up 7-5. He went on to be the conference coach of the year that season. It was an incredible coaching job, and they went 0-3 this spring, 0-2 in conference play. So they know how to turn things around, and they know what it takes. Their players, quarterback George Martin, he is somebody that can make all of the plays. He said it's about their team playing united. And then defensive back Taven Harville, 50 total tackles, 3 interceptions, 14 pass deflections, and he's somebody that said that they have to step up their level of game now that they're in the Big South, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to make them successful in conference play.
And even with the big move to the Big South, Coach Clark isn't going to change his expectations for his team.
My expectations for Robert Morris football this year, 2021 in the fall, is for us to continue to compete. Let's compete on the football field. Let's play for 4 quarters. Understand that no arena's too big. We're going to walk in some stadiums that are a little bit bigger than our stadium. But understand the field's still 100 yards long, 53.5 yards wide, and it doesn't make a difference. Everybody's still 11 men on offense, 11 men on defense. Everybody puts their pants on the same way. Let's compete until the end. Let's show we have great character. Let's play together as a football team.
And the one coach that might be more anxious than any coach in the Big South, that's here at Gardner-Webb, Coach Trey Lamb, who was hired in December of 2019, but he's only been able to coach in 4 games, but he knows that even just 4 games is not going to diminish the goals that he's setting for his team.
We'd want to develop our guys to where, we brought a lot of good freshmen in with the COVID recruiting that we probably wouldn't normally get. And transfers from the transfer portal. We got new faces everywhere. And I want to see those guys develop where, in year 3, 4, and 5, when I'm the head coach, we're competing for championships. I think we can compete and win games this year, no question. And my expectations would be to make the playoffs. I want to do that. I think down the road, it takes time to develop a program and I think our players they're not going to be patient. They're going to try to do it every day and show up and have goals and visions that I align through our coaches, through our players.
And even though they only played 4 games in the spring, it was easy to see that they're going to rely again this fall on running back Nari Gaither. He was first team All-Big South this past spring. It's his big playmaking ability that makes him so dangerous, averaging 122 all-purpose yards per game. And he set a Big South and Gardner-Webb record with a 96-yard touchdown run in a win versus Presbyterian. And you can't forget about team captain Shai Thomas on the defensive side, who's going to be asked to continue his stellar play from this past spring. And also Ty French will be another guy on the defensive side that they're really going to lean on, as he was named the Big South Defensive Freshman of the Year. And then they're also excited about quarterback transfer Bailey Fisher from Tennessee Tech.
A lot of excitement across the board. It's going to be the most competitive season in the Big South that they've ever had in their 20th season. And I think that we're going to see a couple nationally ranked teams and maybe some playoff contenders.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be a conference to keep your eyes on. I mean, hey, we might see a national champion come out of this conference this season.
In 7 out of the 8 past seasons, the Big South has had a team ranked in the top 10, including Monmouth that finished number 10 in the spring. And they've had somebody ranked in the top 25, 128 out of the 132 last polling weeks. And I think we will all agree that this will continue. And not only will we be able to see the rise of the Big South on ESPN+, but now each Saturday you'll be able to see the Big South Game of the Week.
Thanks to Ingles and their partnership as the official grocer of the Big South Conference. And each Saturday beginning September 18th on this station, you can catch the Ingles Big South Game of the Week as part of our Nexstar network of affiliates. The Big South Conference is celebrating 20 years of football this fall and has 3 new members: North Carolina A&T, North Alabama, and Robert Morris. Now, you may have heard that the Big South is an up-and-coming conference in the FCS. It's certainly true, and it's backed up by the fact that for the first time ever, 3 Big South teams appeared in the preseason top 25 national rankings. So remember, each Saturday beginning in mid-September, the Ingles Big South Game of the Week on this station and our Nexstar network. On behalf of Richmond Weaver, Aaron Summers, and Cole Neely, I'm Pete Ganity. We'll see you this fall. And thanks for watching the Ingles Big South Preview Show.